Hi everybody, welcome back to Learning to Paint Elements in the Watercolor Landscape with Corel Painter 12. Joan Hamilton here. This is week 2, video 4. In this video I'm going to show you how to convert those layers that were digital and watercolor layers to one watercolor layer, lift the canvas, the entire canvas to a watercolor layer, wet the entire watercolor layer, and add a non-destructive texture layer. It sounds like a lot, but it's really just a few simple steps, and it's really quite easy to do, and it makes a big difference in the final look of your painting. So, let's get started. Okay, lots to cover in this video, so we're going to get started. This is the document we ended up at the end of the last video. I decided I want to change the color and do a few things with it, so I'm going to change it to all watercolor layer. I'm going to clone the document rather than drop the layers because I want to keep the layers for later just in case I might need to do something with them. I usually do this rather than dropping all the layers at this point. So you just have to lift the canvas to the watercolor layer from the layers menu. Choose Lift Canvas to Watercolor Layer, delete the canvas layer, choose the Wet Watercolor Layer Light Brush on default settings. The paper I'm using right now is soft press watercolor. It doesn't have very much texture in it, so really not much showed up when I did it, so I did it again. Sometimes you need to drop the layer to the canvas and lift it again before it will work. I'm not really sure why, but sometimes it takes a couple of tries. So that's done. You wet the watercolor layer with that brush. You have to have a watercolor brush chosen. Now I'm changing the paper to French watercolor tighter because it has a rougher grain and it might show up a little more. So I'm using the wet watercolor layer brush again and wetting it again. The quality of the video doesn't really allow you to see this really too well. Now I'm going to change the colors. From the effects menu, choose adjust color, and I'm going to just change the hue to a little bluer color. Effects tonal controls, adjust colors, sorry. Okay, that's that. I like that blue a little better. It's a little more in tune with the blues I see in my skies. Now I'm going to soften it to blend the colors together a little bit. Pick focus, soften, and I'll just turn it back to 0 there so you can see what I had. And now this is the zooming in on what it looks like when it's changed at 3.54. Can't really see too much happening there. I took the texture right out of it, but not to worry. I have a little trick that we can get some texture back in there. On a new default layer, we're going to add a non-destructive texture layer. You need to pick a RGB gray that's right smack in the middle, 128 each. Takes me a while to get them there, but I got them there eventually. I had to delete a little bit of the video here. If it looks a little funny, that's why. So we got 128, then you choose the paint bucket fill from the toolbar. Make sure current colors clicked and fill the layer. Then from effects, choose surface control, apply surface texture, and this is the French watercolor tighter paper. I'm taking the amount down a lot and the shine off altogether. I'm leaving it a little rougher than I normally would because I wanted you to be able to see it. Usually I like about 10 or 11%. And then you change the composite to overlay. And see, the texture's back and the grain is back into the paper now. It's not quite the same as getting it there from brushes, but it's more even throughout the whole painting than if you do it that way. And then I usually move that layer up to the top and lock it. That's that. Now we're going to add some gray clouds. I'm going to start with the gel wash brush on a new layer with the pick up underlying box turned on, because you want to make sure we get these pixels covered. So I needed a fairly big brush here. I'm just going to put some big gray clouds near the bottom here. Oh, need a little bit bigger. This is what the dab profile looks like. You can hardly see it there, but it's quite jagged and nice edges on it. It's one of my favorite brushes, as you may have gathered. So I've got some paint there on the bottom. Now I'm going to go to Preserve Transparency. Sometimes you have to go down a layer and back up again to get it checked. And using the wet blender brush, I'm going to lightly go over that area and pick up some of that gray for my clouds. Don't press too hard. Vary the pressure and vary where you're picking up the edges. I missed some gel wash there. That's why it left that space. So you don't have to pick it up all of it. You can just, clouds have different layers of gray and varying layers of opacity, so try to indicate that with your paint a little bit. I know I'm not the best at it, but I try. So I'm going to need some more gel wash over here, I think, because there's a big white space and it looks funny. So back to gel wash, or PUC and gel wash, just to fill in that area there. You go back and forth with these brushes and you can get some pretty interesting effects. Now I'm using the wet blender again to cover that area. So switching back and forth, you can get different layers of clouds there. If you take the Preserve Transparency off, you can paint in areas that you had preserved if you want to paint further than where the gel wash was. Oops, don't like that. Undo brush stroke. And just get a little bit smaller brush here. Gotta go back to pick up underlying color, gel wash. I'm just going to squeeze it down and make it a little flatter brush, and so I can make some different shaped clouds in here. Don't forget, your gel wash doesn't hardly show up at all. If you sort of bend your head and look at your monitor sideways, you can see it better, but you won't be able to see that on the video. So just keep changing the size and shape of your brushes to get different cloud shapes. Don't forget, you're going to go back over this with the wet blender later. There's some nice big gray ones there. When you see my cursor moving around, I'm not pressing on the paper all those times. Here I am. See, I'm picking up with the wet blender where that gel wash was. Just getting a little cloud shape. I like that one. And I'm going to stop for now.